Did you know that your sleep habits could possibly be affecting your immune system? Now, how does this happen? Hello, Dr. Christina here from the TMJ and Sleep Therapy Center of Cleveland. So the topic I wanted to touch on today was sleep and the immune system. As I'm recording this, we are in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I think it's very important for us to bring to light the relationship that exists between sleep and immunity. And they've done quite a bit of research on these things and actually found that there is a very intricate tie between the two, and that sleep loss will indeed affect your immune system in a very negative way. I had the opportunity to recently be on a radio show this weekend, and the host asked me if there was indeed some research that could back this up, and there is. So I'm going to present some of that to you today. I'm not going to get dense into the research, but I did really want to drive the point home that a lack of sleep or sleep deprivation will indeed have a profound effect on your immune system. So there's two ways that sleep deprivation can affect your immune system. One is the lack of sleep quantity, meaning you're not giving yourself an appropriate time for sleep. And the second is the lack of sleep quality. And this tends to be most of the patients that we treat in my practice, or patients who suffer from things like obstructive sleep apnea, upper airway resistance syndrome, or anything else on the spectrum of sleep breathing disorders where the airway itself actually collapses during sleep, causing frequent arousals and not allowing you to sleep throughout the evening. So what do we know about the link between sleep and immunity? So what the science has showed us is that chronic sleep deprivation, and keep in mind, when I say chronic sleep deprivation, I am talking about getting less than 7 hours of sleep on a routine basis. So I know for many of you, you're like, that's just my daily life. That's what normal living is for me. I get 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. And that's wherein the problem lies. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, because the number one thing that you can do to help bolster your immune system is improve the quantity of sleep that you get, So how many hours you're actually aiming for each night. Okay, so what do we know? So chronic sleep deprivation can actually reduce the strength of your immune system. And how does that happen? So it actually reduces your body's ability to heal quickly from infections if you do get infected, but it also reduces your body's ability to fight infections. So let's take a look at that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how a lack of sleep or sleep deprivation reduces your body's ability to fight infections. So we know that the major studies that are done are on shift workers. So shift workers are a population of people that are chronically sleep deprived. And their chronic sleep deprivation has such a negative toll on their health that the World Health Organization actually released a statement that said shift work is a known carcinogen because of the increase in the risk of cancer because of the sleep deprivation that comes along with shift work. So in studies that they've done on shift work, they have actually shown that because of their chronic sleep deprivation, they have an increased incidence of infection. They have also shown that people who sleep less than 7 hours per night or who have a poor sleep efficiency, meaning they are sleeping that 7 to 9 hours a night, but they're actually not able to stay asleep. So the time they spent in bed, less than 92% of that time is actually spent sleeping. So that's talking about people who have a poorer quality of sleep, not quantity of sleep. They are more likely to develop colds. When they did research on vaccination, so they're actually able to test your blood protein levels and certain immune cells and things like that to see how your immune system responds to these things. And so what they did was give people vaccinations, and they showed that people with decreased sleep, so who were sleep deprived, actually don't produce the antibodies to that vaccination. So I know a lot of people want this COVID-19 vaccination, but the same thing goes. If you are sleep deprived, if your immune system is being suppressed in any which way, you actually aren't able to produce the antibodies that you need to in order to acquire that immunity. That's called our acquired immunity. So that means you have something from the outside world, bacteria or virus, it invades your body, and then you have these things called antibodies, and these antibodies sort of attack to or scan the body for these outside invaders so that they can tell the rest of the immune system, hey, something's not right here. This person doesn't belong here. This cell doesn't belong here. So when you're chronically sleep deprived, you're missing those soldiers of your immune system that are able to go out and forage for the cells that don't belong, so the viruses and the bacteria that aren't actually a part of your immune system. And then those antibodies kind of help rally the rest of the troops, or the rest of your immune cells, into action to say, okay, somebody's here, they don't belong here, and now we need to get rid of this bad virus or bad bacteria that's in our body. So you lose that acquired immunity, you lose those antibodies that are produced, those soldiers that get to go around your bloodstream and in your system and find where these bad viruses or bacteria are. But also, you lose the follow-up support. So like I said, in our immune function, what happens is we have antibodies, or these cells that attach to these bad bacteria or viruses that come into the bloodstream or the body. And then what follows up is the rest of the troops of the immune system. So what we call our host defense system, or that innate defense system that we have to fight infections. And what we also see with chronic sleep deprivation is that sleep loss impairs our host defense system too. So a number of different immune cells that they have studied as well show that all of those get reduced when we have chronic sleep deprivation. So what sleep habits might you have that are reducing your immune system or lowering your ability to fight infections? So I alluded to it originally, but the number one thing is not allowing for 8 hours of sleep. So you are reducing the quantity of your sleep. So sleep deprivation comes in the form of not giving yourself enough time to sleep, or again, that you are giving yourself the time, but you have some sort of sleep disorder, sleep breathing disorder that is breaking up or fragmenting your sleep. So the number one thing you can do if you are otherwise healthy is make sure you are always giving yourself that 8-hour sleep opportunity. Many people think they can get by on less than, and the truth is, yes, you can get by, but that's all you are doing. You are not thriving if you're not giving yourself that adequate time for sleep. And in particular, you are harming your immune system and your ability to fight infections. And we can go into a lot more detail on that, but for purposes here, the second thing I want to focus on is another habit that people need to break, and these are habits that are going to affect your sleep quality throughout the night as well. And this would be too much screen time before bed, or too much bright light before bedtime, and not enough light or bright light during the early morning hours. So we've all kind of heard this thing that you shouldn't be on your phones watching TV and stuff like that too close to bedtime, and I'm going to second that. This is probably one of the biggest things that I see happen in my patient population that is reducing the quality of their sleep, is that they are spending too much time on screens, watching TVs in bright rooms right before they fall asleep, and then they attempt to turn off a light and just say, okay, I'm going to be able to fall asleep. And unfortunately, that's not the way it works. So our eyes are very sensitive to light, and they actually send a signal to a part of our brain that tells our rest of our brain, hey, it's time to be awake. And that is light. And it doesn't just have to be blue light from your phones or TVs. It's bright lighting in a room. It's sunlight, all of those things. Yes, blue LED lights do make it worse, but it's not the only type of light that affects our sleep. So most people can't put together the correlation between the two, but there is a very positive correlation between too much light before bed and not being able to fall asleep or get in this good quality sleep. What happens, and you all know it, you turn off the phone and then you lay there and you're like, I can't fall asleep. Well, that's because your brain has been signaled that it's daytime, to be awake, and then all of a sudden you just shut down the computer, turn the TV off, turn off your phone, and you expect to go to sleep, but your brain's like, oh no, you've just been telling me for the last 2 hours that it's time to be awake. Your body needs time to come down off of that. Okay, so that would be my second recommendation. The first thing, always make sure you're giving yourself enough sleep opportunity. The second thing is you really want to be sure you are turning off those screens, and as well lowering the lights in the room. So you don't want to have a brightly lit room right before you go to bed. Always try and have dim lighting. If you can find them, get them. Philips makes those Hue light bulbs. You really want mood lighting in your house when it's gearing down for nighttime and time for sleep. Okay, the other thing I want to talk about, and especially now, I know that things like alcohol and other things that people use to help them cope with stressful times are on a bit of an uptick right now. But alcohol itself, too close to bedtime, is actually going to disturb your sleep as well. Most people believe that alcohol is actually going to help them sleep, but it really doesn't. So alcohol actually completely knocks out all of your REM sleep. So it suppresses your REM sleep. And your REM sleep is that part of sleep that's really good for your memory consolidation, memory association, and things like that. So when you fall into an alcohol-induced sleep, you're really wiping out all of that REM sleep. And we really want all sleep stages when we sleep. The other thing is, I know most people say alcohol helps them to fall asleep. Alcohol doesn't really help you to fall asleep necessarily. It kind of just helps you become unconscious, which is very different than actually falling asleep. So without getting too much more into that right now, that would be my other recommendation, would be to avoid alcohol too close to bedtime. If you want to know, okay, I'm gonna have a glass of wine, when's the best time to have that? A couple hours before bedtime. I would say 4 or more if you can make it. The earlier on in the evening hours that you can drink alcohol, the better. Obviously, abstinence would be best, but if you're not going to be abstinent from alcohol, you want to at least give your body the time to get it out of your system before you try and fall asleep, because we don't want any sleep cycles to be interrupted. Another thing besides alcohol that can disrupt sleep is eating too close to bedtime. And why is that? Because sort of how we talked about how light can sort of trick the body into thinking you're awake, food does the same thing. So food, light, temperature, exercise, all of these things follow what's called a circadian rhythm, right? So that means we have certain parts in the day and night that trick our body into what is our natural sleep and wake cycles. And food is one of those triggers. So food triggers our body that it's awake. It's time for us to eat food. It's time to forage for food. It's time to digest and all these sorts of things. So when you eat heavy meals too close to bedtime, it kind of pushes back that circadian rhythm or that natural sleep-wake cycle that we have, okay? And one of my last recommendations, and again, I know stress is at an all-time high with everything that's going on with COVID-19, but really poor stress management is going to have an effect on your immune system directly. So that cortisol, that stress hormone that we've all heard of, is going to have a direct effect on your immune system, but it's also going to have an effect on your sleep. So unfortunately, we then fall into this vicious cycle of stress affecting your immune system, stress affecting your sleep. Now you're sleep deprived, and that's going to further affect your immune system. So good stress management and good stress control is really important. And I know it's challenging at this time, but it is something that is very important to try and learn, are ways to help manage your stress. There are a lot of different ways to do that. And I will say, if you are having a very challenging time, if it's something that is very serious and dire, I do recommend you reach out to a mental health professional. If you cannot handle the stress of this time, if it's just really getting to you and it just seems too overwhelming. Otherwise, things like meditation, breathing exercises, all these sorts of things are very good to help us try and alleviate some of that stress, because what we don't want is to try and lay down for sleep at night and you're still ruminating and things are still going on in your brain. So start to figure out some of these habits and rituals that you can take in that can help reduce your stress, which is also going to help improve the quality of your sleep as well. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found it useful. Some of those quick tips and tricks that you can use tonight just to try and help you sleep better so that your immune system can be as strong as possible in these times. If you have any questions, comment below, send us a message to info@clevelandtmjsleep.com. Call the office 440-683-4777. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. So please let us know any questions that you have. Thank you so much.